Well, we are standing on a volcano, and nobody has any idea when it's going to blow. That's what we'll talk about today. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all today? A couple of things before we get started. I don't have time to answer all of the comments on the YouTube channel anymore. I answer all comments on the Patreon channel, but everything's getting a little bit too busy for me to keep up on. I want to just give a couple of pointers on anybody leaving comments on the YouTube channel. Be nice, don't be snotty, don't be snarky, don't use bad language, don't start fights, don't start arguments. That's about it, because I will take your comments off. This isn't the place for it. Something else too that I've been seeing more of recently. Please try to state what you're wanting to say clearly and plainly. If it's so cryptic that I have to read it 2 or 3 times to try to figure out what you're trying to say, and then I still can't. There's one from several videos ago. I bet I read that thing 10 times. I didn't want to just take it off, but I said, what are they saying? If I have to work at trying to understand what you're saying, I'm just going to take it off. I don't have time for that. Some of you probably saw, did you see the Republican convention last night? Well, I cover that over on the American Reversion channel if you're interested in that. Right now, of course, we're waiting for Trump to turn himself in down in Fulton County, Georgia. And this is going to change everything in our country. Don't think that it won't. And it's going to change it not just politically, but it's going to have a bearing on preparedness and on preparedness stance. I'm going to address that very, very briefly. Again, you may have heard me say I'm changing the format on this. I'm not putting real long videos on YouTube anymore. I have found that the YouTube audience isn't made for that. The really in-depth stuff, again, I'm putting on Patreon. So if you really want that, come to Patreon. That's where you'll get it from now on. And one more thing before we get started, remember that this and all my videos are brought to you by my books, the Stone Mott series, The Complete Guide to Preparing for, Surviving, and Rebuilding After a Complete Collapse of Everything, and as such, for everything in between. Okay, they're available on Amazon, the link's down below, or directly from me on our website, stonemott.us, and you can put in there what you'd like me to write in it for you. I love doing that. I love my relationship with my readers. As I've said, I'm mainly a writer, not a YouTube guy, and this is just kind of an offshoot of my writing. If you were with us several videos ago, and I made one about this could bring about civil war. And then again on the Patreon channel, I put in a longer one explaining a lot more about it. There's never been a civil war in the United States. Every time I say that, people are surprised. That's because most people don't understand what a civil war is. But I put up over there a great PBS video. I know it's PBS, but it was still great. Well, okay, I'm going to say it's very good, because there were some things in it that weren't exactly accurate, but it was very good. And it was suggested by one of our patrons over there. And in that, it talked about where that war really started in 1850, Kansas. Okay, that's where that war started. It didn't start at Fort Sumter. It really started on the Kansas-Missouri border at about 1850. And in that, they quoted a letter from the Kansas Territorial Governor Wilson Shannon to then President Franklin Pierce. And it said, "We are standing on a volcano, and no one can tell the hour when an eruption may take place." That describes exactly where we are today. The political climate in our country, finally culminating in what they're going to do tonight, Actually, I suppose they want to mugshot President Trump. They're going to take him in and book him like they do. He's going to be treated like a normal criminal. So says the sheriff. No, he's not. I mean, he's got his Secret Service contingent there, so it's not going to be just like it. But they are wanting to push this. And like Napoleon said, if countries want to avoid war, they need to avoid the pinpricks that precede them. Well, they are not avoiding the pinpricks. Just like in 1850s Kansas, they're egging it on and throwing fuel on the fire. I watched the Republican debate. It was horrible. I give my complete rundown over on American Reversion for those of you who are interested in the politics. It was just terrible. There's not a single person on that stage that should be vice president, let alone president. And then afterwards, I watched Tucker Carlson's interview of Trump. And towards the end, of course, it was a good interview. I mean, you got Carlson and Trump, both of which, interestingly, what do they have in common, right? The top people in their field attacked, thrown out by the mainstream, right? Those two have a bigger following than everybody else put together. It wasn't anything earth-shaking. There wasn't anything new that came out of it except for one thing. And towards the end, after Tucker Carlson had said one more question, he asked that question and then he asked another question. He said, and I think maybe, because you know how Carlson does these things, right? He kind of tries to make his interviewee at ease and thinking that's it, and then he throws something else out. Well, you can't trick Trump. So after his last question, then he said, and he looked at him seriously, he said, do you think there could be a civil war? And Trump kind of danced around that for a minute. He didn't really, he just kind of, well, you know the way Trump can do that. He can talk for several minutes without giving an answer, and you got to look real carefully in there to see if he said anything that he really wanted you to pick up on. And very often there is. That's why less intelligent people don't get him. But then when he tried to evade the question, Tucker said, do you think it could come to a physical conflict? So he pushed him on it. Then Trump said, I tell you this. And he was talking about January 6th. He said that day, that crowd, the people with whom he had dealings, with the exception of Mike Pence, he said he had never seen so much love for country as in that crowd, in such a huge crowd. And he said, along with that, he had never seen so much hatred for what had happened to our country and the people who had caused it. I think that speaks volumes. I think that gives us something to think about. People have talked for a long time, and it's usually the talkers, it's the, cold, dead hands type of talkers. Guys, this is serious stuff. This isn't one of those to be spouting T-shirt slogans. Those people are a flash in a pan. They don't stand up when the time comes, or if they do it in such a way that is so stupid, it doesn't serve them or anyone else. And there's no shortage of those, I'll be real honest. Useful idiots, you might call them, right? But there has been so much talk for years about there's going to be a civil war, there's going to be a revolution, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. Most of people have no clue what they're talking about. But here's the truth. If they did know their real history, they'd know that that war that they call the Civil War started 10 years before the first shot was ever fired. But that everything leading up to it was serious. And everything leading up to it was deadly in many ways, just not on a huge scale. But it was the fuse, right? It was lit and it was going. And they don't realize how long these things take, but how suddenly they can blow. And so all the talk in the world is useless. Because like this, the provisional governor said, we're on a volcano and we have no idea when it's going to blow. Well, we are on a volcano now, and we don't have any idea when it's going to blow. And people talking about it isn't going to hurry it or stop it. But what is important is to understand that that's what we're in the middle of, that we're in that process. And that I don't think, now this is my opinion, in my opinion, I don't see anything that can stop it. That makes for a dangerous world. It is very dangerous. Here on YouTube, I found that the best that I can do is to simply offer that warning. That's a warning. Get ready. Do your best. On the Patreon channel, I have found that I can get into a lot more detail. Now, that is not a slam on everyone on Patreon. We have some super smart people on Patreon. I mean, on YouTube. Excuse me. Yeah, we have really super smart people on Patreon. We have some very bright people on YouTube. So this is not a slam on everybody on YouTube. It's an indictment of the overall YouTube, universe. That so many just want to, spout off and muddy the waters. So this is why I save the other stuff. If you just want to be warned, okay, you've got it. Be warned. Okay. For those of you who want to go further, the link for the Patreon channel is down below. Now, when you come over to the Patreon channel, and if you're serious about preparedness, you should. If you don't, you're not serious about. I'll say that right now, and then I'll get people to say, I'm serious, but I'm not going to pay $1. When's the last thing that you were serious about you wouldn't pay $1 for? So don't give me that stuff. This is the kind of stuff I'm tired of dealing with on YouTube, okay? When you come over to Patreon, and the link is down below, the lowest level is $1 a month. But make sure that in addition to all of the videos that you see, that I do and a whole lot of other stuff I put up, make sure you check the member post section. We have an unbelievable group of people over there with such a wide and deep knowledge base. You are going to learn a lot. I learn a lot, and I've been doing this stuff for 40 years, and I've written 6 books, and I learn a lot. You can learn a lot. When you come to Patreon, hope to see you tonight over there. Make sure that you check that every day. But the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning now, I go to the Patreon channel. I check the messages from patrons, because if you're on Patreon, you get to send me messages, direct messages. Okay, and that's a lot of times I'll get back to you personally, or I'll use it as an idea for a video or whatever you'd like. Or sometimes, just people just like to chat, and that's fine too. And then I check for any of the comments, any new comments on the past 6 or 7 videos, and I get back with them. And then I go to the member post section and I read what's in there. And that is such a resource, and it's such a pleasure. So we are standing, so come over, please. I invite you. I hope you do. You will get so much for it. If you want to go to the next level, you certainly may, and that's where you get to hear me read the audibles of my books. We're about on chapter, I think we're up to about chapter 17. We're up to something like that on the first book, The Reversion. And the Stone Mount level, the $5 a month level, lets you get all of that in addition to everything else. So, do what's right for you. But remember and think about this, realize we are standing on a volcano. We have no idea when it's going to blow. So what would behoove you to prepare, right? How much more do you want to prepare? That's up to you. But if you don't think you're as prepared as you need to be for a complete collapse of this thing, be it a real civil war, not like that other war, a real civil war like we discussed quite a bit last week, or just for anything else, you need to get busy, because when this house of cards starts falling down, it's going to come down faster than you would believe. Okay. You all have a great day. Now I'm going to get off of here, and I'm getting ready to shoot one. We're waiting for, I'm watching over here. We're waiting for Trump to turn himself in. I'm going to be doing another one over on the American Reversion channel for that. And I'll probably do another more in-depth one for the Patreon channel of Integrative Preparedness later this evening. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Get out there and prepare, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.